So they're more treacherous than the word bearers.
Yes, they would make the word bearers look like college freshmen in treachery school.
Ooh,
They
that's a pretty. Word bearers are my favorite.
Erebus getting his head dunked in a toilet by a Skaven.
Are they like? Are they all Erebuses? Like every one of them?
Erebus would get outplanned by the average Skaven because Erebus can trust someone is listening to his BS. There is not a single Skaven in all of Skavendom who is not expecting the guys next to him and then the 500 behind him to stab him in the back.
Hello, law criminals, and welcome to another episode of Lorecrimes. I am Hal, and joining me today are Andy, Colin, and Eli, and we are here to discuss the race that does not exist. In brackets, according to Sigmar, for everyone out there. Our topic today is the Skaven, the Rat Men, the Vermintide. And I will hand it over to Eli to helm our beginner section. Take it away, Eli.
Skaven are best race, yes. They are glorious and powerful warlords of the underway. Every being is inferior to the rest. Especially the putrid man-think thing. Skaven engineering is grand, true testament to the superiority of Ratmen. All glorious, brave leader commanders lead from the back. As a Skaven, you are always right, correct? Yes. If something bad happens, it is never your fault. It is always due to incompetent slave lackeys. Skaven are always right and always best.
Oh my god!
Wow, that's the best intro we've ever done. Surely.
I need it. Oh my god! I need to sit down.
I don't think that was Eli. I think the spirit of Thanquol just inhabited his body.
Credit to whoever the guy who reads the Gotrek and Felix books. He's a true master of the Skaven.
I thought you've wow. I'm overstimulated from that. I'm a bit. You've got me.
Descended from him.
I think I'm in fight or flight. Honestly, that's just too much.
Squirt the musk of fear.
Oh god!
Well, we all know that Hal is a big fan of the Skaven since the last episode when he said "Daddy Ratty."
Daddy. We want to know more about the Daddy Ratty. That's why we're all here.
Yes, indeed.
Hit us with the lore.
I do have an actual little bit of lore. So okay. So the Skaven are the massive giant empire of cunning, glorious ratmen that live in the bowels of the earth. Countless ratways connect to the many undercities all across the land. Many such cities are located under major pathetic man-thing establishments such as Nuln. The capital of the Skaven, by the way, is Skaven Blight.
There's a big one below Nuln.
Mm-hmm. The Skaven are easily the most numerous and grand race, and if they were to band together, they could take over the entire world. But unfortunately for them, the average Skaven is full of cowardice. Well, not cowardice. No, Skaven aren't cowardly. They're just they're intelligent and self-persevering. Cowardice is a proud good thing, but treachery is also a very large reason why they can't ever get as much done as they should. And it runs extremely rampant amongst their society. The betrayal is food and drink to the average rat. For who else would I look for other than me? But due to the genius and ingenuity of the great Skaven race, the ratmen highly favor strength in numbers and will almost never fight a battle unless they see losing as completely impossible. So too, to the brave and cunning Skaven commanders lead from the back rear, because it is superior Skaven tactics. While the many lesser races of the Warhammer world are arrogant, this is nothing compared to Skaven kind, for they are the rightful owners of the world, the superior and righteous warriors of the great horned rat. Each individual rat thinks themselves to be the best, and every failure is clearly due to incompetent lackeys or some ruse of treachery woven by other Skaven. And it always is. Their society is split up into distinct clans, which hold their own specialties, ranging from military might, technological genius, the spraying of plague, and unimaginable monstrous creations of flesh. The 4 major clans are Clan Eshin, the sneaky guys, Clan Scryer, the technological guys, Clan Molder, the monster mashers, and Clan Pestilence, which are like Nurgle rats.
The
but
stinky ones.
Nurgle's not there. They're just very stinky.
Stinky ones.
The ones that haven't been in the shower for a while.
The ones from Vermintide that show up to steal all of your health.
Yeah. They're really ugly.
Damn, he roasted how they looked.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
It's like all the blessings of Nurgle and the religion of Nurgle, but without Nurgle. They're just gross.
Eli, I can't believe you've been drawn into the clutches of rat shaming. It's not good.
I also an honorable mention to Clan Morris because Quick Bread Maker is from there, and he's big epic Skaven. Anyways,
Bread Maker.
His real name's Quick Head Taker, but he's
bread
makes
bread maker.
he makes the bread. Yeah.
Yo, he
But got me
diving
rhyming
in
slang. Oh, you know, the good old bread maker. Oh, innit?
I just pictured Donald, you know, the bit with the Donald Duck, and he dives into like the pond of like golden coins. I'm just picturing that now because that's all I can see. Sorry, yeah, Scrooge McDuck. Sorry, wrong Duck. Wrong duck. Lorecrimes there.
Glorious warp stones and warp dust and heads. Queek loves his heads. He's probably the best duelist of all the Skaven and all the land because Skaven are better than everyone. Don't forget it. Anyway, we will go deeper into the Great Clans, further into the film video. Yes. While the rats are powerful in the sense they have great numbers, so too is their engineering far beyond any of the other societies. They construct incredible and volatile weapons of war that can tear beings to pieces with a tidal wave of warpstone bullets, or evaporate an entire structure with warp lightning. The society is generally dominated by the largest and smartest rats, and a loose hierarchy is set in place, starting at Skaven slaves, then to clan rats, and then to other superiors, and eventually all the way to the top, you have the Grey Seers, and then the Council of 13. The society is run largely by Warpstone, a glorious green little rock that they use as money. They use it for magic. They use it to make machines, to huff it, and to take steroids. All of this stuff.
Did you say huff it? Like
Yeah.
They have a line like on the table at a club.
Yeah.
Damn. That's a bit too much, and I'm not gonna lie.
It's like the idea that the Skaven are on PRTs, like, oh, what? And they're just like in the gym, like, what's your cycle? Oh, you know, Skaven.
Yeah, that's just Warpstone. You probably never heard of it though. You know, like, you're just not in the know.
Yeah, they got the Skaven bodybuilding competitions with rat ogres and stuff. Warpstone is very tasty and very addictive. We'll talk about more of it a little bit later, I think. But for now, we will delve further into the glorious grand realm of the Skaven with guidance from the great, most wise of masters. Colin, may you proceed if it is the wishes of the great seer, almost benevolent master.
I would be happy, please, to continue the lore.
Very good, yes.
Is there any questions so far?
There are many questions.
My question is, can Colin do a better Skaven impression? That's all I'm thinking.
I can attempt to. I actually have a question of my own, and that is, Eli, how much do I need to pay you to read your wedding vows in the Skaven voice?
Oh, man, no. Oh, she'd be so unhappy.
Marriage,
so
yes.
Oh, my God.
She gave me my divorce papers, yes.
Oh, man.
Oh, this is a goofy episode.
I have one question, which is about Clan Pestilence, because I unfortunately got reminded of that video. Is Clan Pestilence the one where It's the one with the video about the guy who pranks his roommate on the door by unleashing a god torrent fart. I hope to link this in the actual chat in the comment section for no reason, because this is Clan Pestilence in a nutshell.
Remember when Lorecrimes was a serious channel?
When? What do you mean? When?
Me neither.
Our first line was necrocy.
The first utterance.
Truly.
Oh, Merry Christmas, everyone! Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
Happy holidays and good luck holding down the Christmas ham. Oh.
I'm ready. I'm ready, Colin. Hit us with the Skaven.
I would say I feel like I should get it out of the way first. Now I will discuss Skavendom. Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Very nice.
Throt the Unclean was my
Clan Molder.
Yeah, Throt's my main man.
Nice.
Anyway, to begin the Skaven expert lore section, why don't we read a poem? Not, high school cringe love poem. Sorry to anyone who's ever in one of those. But instead a poem known as the Doom of Kavsar. This is the origin story, you should say, of the Skaven. Now, once upon a time, where in between the city-states of Talea and the nation of Estalia, there was a city known as Kavsar. And unlike pretty much anything else in Warhammer, the men and dwarves lived together in pretty much perfect harmony. The dwarves, of course, lived underground in the mountainous sections, and the humans lived above, but there wasn't really any problems between them. And one day they decided they wanted, in order to honor their gods, build a tower as high as they could. And they did. They began construction, but eventually they hit the Minecraft world height limit. They couldn't build any higher. And just as this happened, along came a mysterious stranger. Now, the legend is conflicting details on this, which translates to Games Workshop has waffled back and forth on the lore. He might have been evil, he might have not been, but either way, he gave the citizens of Kavsar an offer. If he will help them complete the tower, and in return he asks for nothing but to build a monument to his own god on top of the tower. And they agree, the citizens of Kavsar, and lickety-split, towers are done in just a little bit more time. And, like I said, the details conflict a bit. The citizens might have shorted him payment. They might have not done that, and he was just evil. But either way, the tower was completed with a bell on top of it. And one night, the bell began to ring as the tower was opening. It rang once, twice, all the way up to 13 times. And the 13th time, the Doom of Kavsar was sealed. And as the days went by, Warpstone, which, to talk about that for a moment, take chaos and then turn it into a rock, and you have Warpstone. It began to rain from the sky, mutating the crops, mutating the animals, mutating the people, killing people, everything unpleasant. The crops failed as storms ravaged the land, and harvests were poor, so the people began starving, men and dwarf. And most relevant to the story, rats began growing larger and larger in size, and at a certain point they began devouring the people of the city alive if they were caught alone. Now, the humans of the city turned to the dwarven entrance to the quarters and said, "Hey, let us in. Things are really bad up here." And then the dwarves in response said, "Go to hell, Umgi. We have no room. We don't care to have you in here. Piss off." So, night 2 comes by, the humans come around to the dwarven keep again and say, "Hey, can we come in now?" And the dwarves say, "No, go away, Umgi. We still don't want you. Also, we have no food. Rats ate all of it." Third time, third day, third night. It's getting even worse. The rats are even bigger now. The people are done asking politely. They bang down the doors to the dwarven keep, and they find 2 things. One, a bunch of freshly picked clean dwarf skeletons, and man-sized rats that have devoured them whole. And then the Doom of Kavsar ends to the sound of screaming humans and rats devouring them.
Damn, that's
Beautiful.
eerie.
This is.
I think I remember one part, which I remember. This is what got me into Warhammer Fantasy years ago, and I remember the part. I don't know if this is what you're about to say, but it's the part where they said they look into the dark, don't they? And they see all these like eyes light up, and that was nightmare fuel for me for quite a while.
Eyes, they see nothing but red beady eyes, and when the torches are put forward, there's rats.
Mm.
There's a couple other accounts of how the Skaven came about. My personal favorite, other than this one, is that the sea god Manan cursed a bunch of sailors who were stranded on an island and turned to cannibalism to take on rat-like forms. And if that one's true, thank you, Manan, for making the world infinitely worse. That being said,
infinitely better.
Of course, infinitely better. Skaven are best.
Also causing the end times as well. So
We don't talk about that.
I shouldn't have said that.
We're not to that lore yet. I have to talk about it, but we're not there yet. We're having fun times. And as far as the Doom of Kavsar goes, copies of that poem keep mysteriously disappearing, and people who know about it keep ending up dead. So that's probably the canon one. Now, the Skaven are now a thing, much to the delight of me and Eli, and the horror of everyone else in the Warhammer world. So, to talk about them a bit before I get into their history, they're a race of rat men located everywhere. There's only 2 nations, or regions, I suppose, that don't have the Skaven. One is the High Elven continent of Ulthuan, because Ulthuan, unlike every continent ever, doesn't actually go down to the seabed. It's a floating island, so it's kind of hard to dig a tunnel through the water. And the Wood Elf realm of Athel Loren, because it's a magical forest, and when the Skaven try and dig into it, the tree branches come alive and impale them, so they learned eventually it's not worth it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Impale.
Don't mess with nature. That's their motto.
Yeah.
I just imagine they get strangled, to be honest.
Strangle, impale, whatever the forest feels like doing to them today, that's what happens to it.
Fair enough, fair enough.
It's quite a wacky forest, Athel Loren, but for now, it's rat time. So, as Eli mentioned, the Skaven, they're quite numerous. In fact, I would say they outnumber every other race by several factors of 10. And their science as well is also well beyond any other race. They have energy weapons, because in this Renaissance era period of the world, the Skaven just stole a bunch of weapons from 40k. They have demonic flamethrowers. And of course, what else would you expect in a fantasy setting but nuclear weapons?
Mm.
Because, yes, this is fair and balanced.
Is it that kind of thing with... It reminds me of that passage of if you gave a bunch of monkeys, like infinite monkeys, time, they'd write Shakespeare. Is that basically just how the Skaven did it? There's just so many of them. They were bound to like develop stuff because there's so many of them.
Pretty much exactly how the Skaven invent things. If you throw enough rats at a problem, one of them is going to have a breakthrough, and then the others...
It's nothing to do with hygiene.
Yeah, no. And then the others are going to kill him and copy his breakthrough.
I think there wasn't there in 40k, weren't they originally in like early editions in 40k, which are now the race called the Hrud?
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
The Hrud used to be more or less space Skaven, and now they're weird aging monster things.
I think they're like they're described as like oily, which is like you know what I mean? But apparently they have like they still carry. I had a piece of. I had to look them up recently. Yeah,
they're like the Inklings from Splatoon, basically.
I think they had like it was like they have like literally have musket guns at one point, and I was like, oh man, they still have like a Skaven vibe still.
Yeah.
But obviously the Skaven are the superior form.
Of course, 40k is worse off for them not being in it. The people in it are better.
100%.
The people in it are better off, but the setting is worse off.
Truly.
They power all of this stuff from Gatling machine guns called Rattling guns. I can't let that one slip by. To sniper rifles, to their vehicles, everything they have is powered by warpstone, which like I said, raw chaos solidified into a rock. It powers their stuff, energy, weapons, whatever. They use it to boost their magical power by snorting it, or eating it, which, again, they also just straight up eat it, and they're pretty much the only race that can do that without instantly dying or turning into a chaos spawn. Further proof of Skaven superiority.
Just yuck. Ugh.
I'm assuming that other races can use the warp stones for their own. It's not just the Skaven who are harnessing it.
No, it's just the others can use it, but nowhere
Very
near the same
dangerous.
extent that the Skaven do.
Right.
Is it kind of like radiation? Like if you can work around it, but like not really, like a human couldn't really work around it too long.
Yeah, it's otherwise they'll pretty much become mutated by the raw chaotic energy. And especially in the human nations, mutations get you put on the chopping block pretty quickly. So generally...
And rightly so.
Of course. Suffer not the mutant to live. 40k and fantasy share that.
Good stuff.
Hal wasn't a fan.
It's not the official opinion of Lorecrimes, let's just say that. anyone dares to think that. But it is, to be fair, we do enjoy the vibe, at least.
Apologies to all of the X-Men I've offended.
No.
I should move on.
Let's.
Yeah.
Jubilee was one of the X-Men, so it's fair game.
Life for the Skaven is a pyramid scheme where shit flows downhill. The Council of the Skaven, which I'll get into more later, rules over them all, and then it goes down from there to the average Grey Seers and Warlords of the clans, to whatever you can call the merchant classes of the Skaven, like Clan Molder Scientists or Warblock Engineers, to the humble rank-and-file clan rat, to the Skaven slave who have a life expectancy of about 5 minutes. The average Skaven lives to about 13 years, and almost none of them get to that age anywhere close.
Oof.
Yeah, it's not good being a Skaven. The 4 great clans rule with the most power, while there's also lower-ranking clans known as Warlord clans, and Thrall clans, who basically lend themselves out to whatever clan will take them. All the while, everyone involved in this is just constantly trying to backstab each other, get one up. The Thrall clans want to be Warlord clans, the Warlord clans want to be Great clans, the Great clans want to keep everyone else below them. It's just constant backstabbing. I cannot emphasize enough how much the word Skaven is synonymous with treachery. And I'd go so far as to say they're the evilest race in any Warhammer setting.
Ooh, that's big. That's fighting words there.
Listen, you might say demons pretty evil, and you're right, but
in their nature, though, at least
it's in their nature, and they do have some good things. Slaanesh is also, as much as she's the god of excess, she's also the goddess of pleasure, which isn't inherently bad. Tzeentch is hope. Nurgle loves his followers. And I don't like saying nice things about Khorne, so I just won't. Bravery and honor and all that for those who would be yelling at me.
So they're more treacherous than the word bearers.
Yes, they would make the word bearers look like college freshmen in treachery school.
Ooh, that's a pretty word bearers are my favorite.
Erebus getting his head dumped in a toilet by a Skaven.
Are they like? Are they all Erebuses? Like every one of them?
Erebus would get outplanned by the average Skaven because Erebus can trust someone is listening to his BS. There is not a single Skaven in all of Skavendom who is not expecting the guys next to him and then the 500 behind him to stab him in the back.
And I hate Erebus. I hate Erebus.
It's fun with the Skaven though because it just goes. They're so silly.
Hashtag Erebusy.
Erebusy, no.
Got it out of the way early.
I hate it. I hate it. He deserves it though, to be fair. Erebusy.
Indeed, this treachery is the only reason they haven't conquered the world. Because, again, they outnumber everyone. They out-tech people, although their tech is, shall we say, not the most reliable. Sometimes more likely to blow up in their face than the enemy's. But reliable enough that in a fight, it'll kill something. It's just they fight each other more than anyone else. They hate the other races more than each other, but it's by the barest of margins they hate the other races more than each other. I cannot emphasize enough how slight of a margin. But to the misery of everyone else, there's always more Skaven. You're not getting rid of these things. As for their clans, these are the ones that influence their culture the most, to the extent that while there are clans with their own unique traits that the other great clans don't have, most of the Skaven clans will in some way be like this great clan, but with these traits on top. So to start us off, Clan Molder, because I'm playing them in Total War at the time of recording this podcast, so they go first. Clan Mulder is the Beastmasters and the Mad Scientists, at least biological. Frankenstein's monster, they would yawn, say they've done it before, and then graft another 5 arms onto it just to be funny. They create all of the biological monsters Skaven use, and this gives them huge influence, because what they create is very, very deadly, and unlike the weapons of the Skavendom, a monster can't blow up in your face. It might eat you, but on the field of battle, you can point it at an enemy, and it will reliably turn that thing into a red stain.
I have a nightmare once, which was, I'm not gonna lie, this is an actual nightmare, where I turned around, and there was like a rat ogre, and it was just eyes locked to me, and it's when it's like runs at you, you know the film Get Out, where the guy runs at the guy, and he doesn't break away until like the last second. I had that nightmare, but with a rat ogre once, and it was like it was doing like his run. Its shoulders were like it's like his shoulders like were moving, and it was just that's what I have in my head of the rat ogre.
Before it ended, he stopped, he turned around, he went, "Don't eat cheese before you go to bed," and then he ran off.
I don't remember the end of it. I don't remember how it ended, but I definitely remember having that thought, and I thought, just even now,
waking up and going,
how awful that is.
Bed. Oh no!
To whoever's like listening to this and sleeping or trying to go to sleep, enjoy that thought. Have fun.
Remember, there are no rat ogres in your walls.
The floors, however,
that's a
bit squashed.
Oh, so but some Skaven even use what they create as bodyguards or mounts, because there's no horses in Skavendom, but there is a regular rat the size of a horse, so that does the job well enough. And they have their own magicians, though their presence in lore and tabletop is pretty minimal, largely lore-wise, because the Skaven Council has declared their version of magic to be illegal and wrong, because it's not the Grey Seers on the council using it, therefore don't do it.
Wait, so the Skaven have a council of an IKEA thing going on?
This is more of a literal council, like the governing body of the Skaven. They have had some events where their god, and unlike the Emperor, they didn't lie about not being a god, told them directly to do things, but we'll get to that because it's important for what's coming. Nonetheless, though, their creations still have both science and dark magic used in it. If you look up a Hell Pit abomination, you need some wacky science and magic to get that thing to not die immediately. Their main city is, of course, known as Hell Pit, where the abominations get their name from. Pray you never have to go down there. It's called Hell Pit. I probably don't need to explain further than that.
It's in the north, isn't it? Near Kislev.
It is. It's above Kislev, right below Norska.
It makes sense that it's near the Eastern European, like me, like centered faction, because misery loves company. So I'm glad we have that kind of link to it.
It's also in the region called Troll Country, so there's a lot of monsters there. And since they're the monster clan, they just pop up to the surface, kidnap a couple trolls, and go, "All right, what are we making today, boys?"
Yeah.
Lord Verminkin is their leader and the one who sits on the Skaven Council, though Throt the Unclean is the main Mulder character, and that's something that, just as a heads up, the main characters of each Skaven clan are pretty much the ones that were chosen to be legendary lords in Total Warhammer. So if any of these names sound familiar to you, that's probably why. Throt has an extra arm, and instead of an eye socket, he has warpstone jammed into it, and this makes him, 1, strong, and 2, very, very, very hungry. So he's a big fan of eating. They also have Gorich, who Throt took a Norscan berserker that Archaon said was going in timeout forever, and jabbed his brain into a rat ogre, and he's just a lump. Yeah, he's
awesome.
He's not happy with his situation, but he doesn't exactly have much other choice because he'd have to fight Archaon to come back, and that's not happening.
There's no HR department.
The Chaos Gods do not have an HR department. Oh, after them, Clan Scryer, mad scientist but with machines. If you need a machine gun, energy weapon, you go to Clan Scryer. They're also the ones who make the hell-powered nuclear missiles because they just go nuts. They have power armor, they have life-elongating technology, which, again, to be fair, not many Skaven get access to that. And they even develop telephones with a device called the Farsqueaker, which is just a beautiful name.
Is that the one which I think I know who they communicated with specifically with one of those? Is that the one where it relates to 40k?
It will, and I will get to that when we talk about the no good, horrible, very bad end times.
I won't spoil then. I won't spoil.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Hello everyone, editing Colin here. Immediately after recording, I realized I done screwed up bad. I forgot to talk about the exact thing you just heard, so for clarification, the people the rats called were the Eldar. They found a lizardman device that was essentially one of their own Farsqueakers, dialed it, and then it called the Eldar. Or rather, it called a people who sounded elven but alien. Well yes, this could theoretically also be the Lumineth Realm Lords. Elves but alien? Come on. Anyways, back to your regularly scheduled program. Other inventions they have is, of course, the Doom Wheel, which, you know that car General Grievous, that circle thing he had in episode 3?
Oh, that thing, yeah. Like, he's running away from Obi-Wan on the
yeah. Imagine that and cross with a hamster wheel, and then put a lightning gun inside of it.
Is that like when people, you see videos of people and they like put themselves in like a tractor tire and then go down a hill?
It's pretty much that.
Or, sorry, for my UK audience, it's when people chase the wheel of cheese down the hill and they break their legs. If everyone knows about this race, do you guys know about that race in the UK?
I have seen clips of it.
I've seen a little video.
I've seen clips of people absolutely tumbling down.
It's very appropriate because obviously they're rats chasing cheese. That's what I'm picturing now. That's like the design, right? The wheel.
Pretty much, yeah. It's got a little like the World War I. You know those old tractor tanks that they had the big like metal grid thing behind it, like to help steer. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Kind of like a rudder.
Yeah. Like the tanks were the first ones that had the rudder. It has like that behind it.
Yeah.
But it's also just a big wheel.
Big wheel, go boom. Big wheel. Wheel with the rat on it. Wheel with the rat.
Pretty much. And
that's the vibe.
Their devices are often as fatal to the user as to whoever it's pointed at, which is actually reflected in their tabletop rules. For example, the Warp Lightning Cannon, you can choose to overcharge it, which might double its damage output. It might explode.
Damn. I had to say, like, I almost said the question why. I realized it's the Skaven. There is no why. There is why not.
Because there is the option. That's actually a funny thing about the Skaven. They're incredibly, not cowardly, of course. They're intelligent. They lead from the back. But they also love quick routes to power. Like, someone put it online, I saw. If you give a Skaven a potion, it's got a 50% chance of doing nothing, a 25% chance of killing them, and a 25% chance of letting them breathe fire. They're taking that every time. It doesn't matter how dangerous it is. If they see quick route to win, they're taking it.
Yeah. Imagine especially like, oh, you could have done what? And you chickened out. Boo.
Yeah.
You wouldn't hear the end of it.
Or some other rat would have done it or taken the potion anyway.
That's exactly why they do it. It helps them with the backstabbing.
Their premier pressure is real in this Skaven.
Their premier special character is Icketclaw, who's also one of the people who invents a lot of the weapons you see on tabletop, such as the Doom Wheels and, in Total Warhammer, the Nuke. Next up, Clan Eshin. It's just imagine Master Splinter, but make him evil. You have Clan Eshin. They're the Skaven spies, assassins, espionage, whatever needs to be done. Little is known about them, but that's entirely due to their own machinations. They don't want anyone to know what they're up to, what they're doing. Very secret. The reason they're ninjas is because they went to the country of Nippon, which is Japan, and someone taught them how to be ninjas. I don't know why they thought that was a good idea, to teach the rabid rabies rats how to be ninjas, but someone did.
Good on them.
Yeah, have fun figuring that lore question out, because
that has thrown me for a second. I didn't realize they taught them. That has really thrown me.
I couldn't find an answer to why they did it, so I have to assume someone thought it would be really funny for whoever had to deal with it.
Someone was just really spiteful. They were like, I'm gonna die soon. I mean, why not?
People teach their dogs to get beers out of fridges, so I feel like this was someone like, this is the next step, clearly.
Their dogs do worse than that.
I mean, I wasn't going to go there, though, but...
No, I don't have to. Just
we family friendly on this channel. Sometimes.
Occasionally. Their lair in Skaven Blight is pretty small, but that's, again, on purpose. They don't want people to know what they're doing. And anyone who tries to break in to find out what's going on is never heard from again, so it's working out for them. Their premier character is Deathmaster Snikch. He's the most renowned assassin in the Warhammer world by far. Some of his escapades include murdering someone in complete secrecy, despite the fact he was surrounded by armed guards and in a locked room. He didn't break the lock in the door. One day the guards went to check on him and they found his corpse. So he's pretty good at getting where he needs to be. And I have to skip ahead to the end times because it proves that Snikch is really cool, but also I hate this lore. He killed the High King of the Dwarfs after a massive battle. I'll get to that when I talk about the end times.
We like dwarves.
Pain. But he hates end times.
Oh wait, I love the dwarves. I hate what happened to Thorgrim, but it's canon, so I can't ignore it. Many kills that aren't his are attributed to him to boost his legend. And you might think the Skaven, as cowardly as they are, would go, hey, I did that, give me the credit I deserve, because they're also power hungry. But anyone who, again, tries to get one up on old Snikch then has to deal with Snikch in person, and you do not survive that. So they suck it up. His exact location is also never known to him, or never known to anyone but him and Eshen's leader.
Just know where he is.
He's really sneaky.
That's hilarious.
He's got amnesia.
Literally, his Google Maps cannot connect to the local Wi-Fi.
That's how he's so good at it. If he doesn't know where he is, you don't know where he is.
He's got murder-based Alzheimer's. What's going on?
Oh, man.
My God.
Oh, the Skaven flubbing all over the place. But his location is known only, of course, to him and their leader, Night Lord Sneak. The Skaven naming is not subtle. Oh, I love that name so much.
Sneak, Shadow, like just might as well get them all off the list at that point.
Yeah.
Damn.
Generally, Eshen does not involve themselves in the civil war that happens every 5 minutes in Skavendom, except to sell their services off to the highest bidder. They don't want the spotlight because they're the sneaky clan, but they're happy to profit. Now, the last great clan, there are 1.5 clans left, but this is the last great one. Clan Pestilence, the Plague Rats.
This is my favorite.
They worship the Horned Rat, the Skaven god, as an aspect of disease and decay. A lot like Nurgle, but unlike Nurgle, the Horned Rat doesn't have any friendly grandfather aspects to him. He's just a prick.
Just despises all of them, I bet. Even the really powerful one, just nah, bro. You're lacking.
The best
lacking.
The best you can hope for out of the Horned Rat is he finds you funny. And that's not me making that up. That is genuinely something he has said before.
You say the joke and you get the hell out of there.
Yeah, and then you leave before he can eat you. They went to the continent of Lustria many years ago and got stranded when they dug their way back to the old world by tunneling under the ocean, because of course the Skaven can do that. They had changed from regular Skaven, backstabbing, treacherous pricks, to sickly, treacherous, backstabbing pricks. And upon returning, they demanded breeding rights, a massive amount of warpstone, and a seat on the Skaven Council, which caused the Skaven Civil War, the first great one, and ended with them getting what they wanted, but they were severely damaged by it, so, even on all accounts. Lord Nurglich is the clan leader. There's, again, unsubtle naming. Nurgle, Nurglich. And Lord Skrolk is their premier special character. Lord Skrolk saw Lord Nurglich and was so awestruck by how disgusting Nurglich was that he tore his eyes out because he would never see anything as beautifully disgusting again.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Horned Rat, and one of the only, I say this is nice, one of the only beneficial things he's ever done to anyone else is he gave Lord Skrolk the ability to see without his eyes, though it's in hues of decay, because if he gives you a gift, it's gonna suck. Lord Skrolk is, despite being a walking sack of diseases, very strong and fast, and B, has so many plagues on him that standing near him can turn you into soup.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he's quite the character. He also carries one of the books of the Liber Bubonicus, the original text of the Clan Pestilence faith. So imagine some Sister of Battle walking around with the original Lectitio Divinitatus. That's the
the Holy Book. Yeah.
Imagine some Sister Battle walking around with that, and that's Lord Skrulk.
Right. Just nowhere near as like pleasing to the eye.
Yeah,
just like no.
Yeah, and then 1,000 times more disgusting to look at.
Is he like when you drop your ice cream in like on the floor and it has like hair on it and stuff?
That's what anyone who comes within a 10-foot radius of him looks like.
You have to lick it with your eye because it's like yeah, enjoy that.
To be fair, he'd probably lick up the people soup.
Oh yeah, tasty.
Oh,
just walks around with a ladle, just like, not bad.
Oh man. Second to last clan, Clan Moors. They're not a great clan, but they're not far from it.
They're just there.
They're there. They're like the side character who's almost a main character. Not quite, but everyone loves them all the more for it.
But gets no maidens.
Gets no maidens.
Maidenless.
I know Quick has maidens.
Tier first, Clan Moor maidenless.
Yeah.
I've said it. I'm saying it right now. It's official statement of Lorecrimes. Maidenless.
Good lord.
Oh,
They specialize in infantry. There's no mad science. There's no plagues. There's no mad scientists, but with genetics this time. Just drowning you in rats. But unlike other Skaven clans, they're kind of weird. They're almost brave, almost honorable, almost loyal. Rising in this clan, you can actually do it by being a good soldier and not stabbing everyone in front of you in the back. That being said, if you're not caught stabbing your leader in the back, then, that works just as well. You just can't be as obvious as you can be in the rest of Skavendom. That's the sticker here. Their infantry are actually trained and properly armored from Clanner to Stormvermin, unlike the other Skaven clans where the Stormvermin at best are armored, and everyone else is just told to have fun with it, have fun catching arrows. Warlord Nodwell is their leader, though Queek Headtaker, as usual, is their legendary character, supreme character. Big surprise, he takes heads and collects them as trophies. He can hear what they have to say, and they offer him everything from warning to criticisms. They have different personalities, and they're completely unrelated to whatever race he takes them from. Like, I think one of the orc heads he has is actually pretty wise, which is really, really funny to me.
The criticism part is hilarious too, because I'm just imagining like you chose to wear that today, like if you're a dead spirit, you must get petty, like just like anything, just dressing him down.
One of them is a rival warlord that he killed, and it offers him the most criticism. Others praise him. Others say, "Hey, this might be a good idea, champ. Why don't you try this one out?" And I'm going to send the first quote. Andy, would you mind reading this for me?
Did I do it in a Skaven voice, or what I assume is a Skaven voice?
That is entirely up to you.
Okay, let's have a look.
Everyone, they're concerned for Quick's sanity. Perhaps you worry less for what is in Quick's head, and more on keeping what is in yours.
Is that any good?
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Damn, I don't think we could follow that. That's pretty tough.
That was awesome.
To be honest, I modelled it entirely off Eli's performance, so if it's any good, you have Eli to thank for that.
I mean,
you're not super in the knowledge on that, so you literally don't.
Okay, I've just copied Eli's homework.
Well, it was copied pretty well.
I'm pretty sure Queek's like an actually pretty honorable, if I remember correctly.
He is. He's like I said, like Clan Moor's embodied. Almost brave, almost loyal.
Leads from the front.
Leads from the front, the most unskaven-like of qualities.
Truly.
That's why he has to tell people, be less concerned for what's in my head and be concerned with what's keeping in yours. Because people think he's a bit of an oddball. Understandable for Skaven. But he doesn't take anything from them, so quite the badass.
Isn't that why his tactics work, isn't it? Because they expect him to behave like a Skaven, and then he just does the opposite.
Yeah, and then
everyone doesn't know what to do.
His power is Uno reverse card.
Yeah, and then a rat comes screaming at you at 60 miles an hour, pinwheeling like 2 weapons around.
Yo, check out that spiral, dude.
Yeah, he's
I think he's pretty successful in the end times as well.
He is. He kills a very important dwarven leader, which we will get to.
What is it with Skaven killing dwarves? I get they're kind of like bitter rivals, but still.
It's once I'm done with the clans and I get to their history, I will be happy to tell you what's up with the Skaven killing dwarves.
I like dwarves. I don't want them to die.
They're cool, but that's Warhammer. Nothing cool can go get through unmolested.
That's true.
Now, the last thing before I get into their history, the Grey Seers and the Council of 13. Neither are great clans, but they're the leaders of Skaven society. If a Skaven's born with grey fur and will eventually grow horns, they're taken from birth to be trained as Grey Seers, the mages. They're worshipped as the Horn Rat's chosen, and they carry out his will on the material plane. It makes them mostly immune to the backstabbing of other Skaven, except for other Grey Seers. But this isn't really out of respect, it's because they fear the guy who can wave his hands and then you explode. Pardon me. The Horned Rat, of course, being the Skaven's god, they love decay and ruining everyone else's things. The Skaven are not nice. The Council of 13, meanwhile, consists of Grey Seers and the most prominent of the clan warlords who have avoided being backstabbed, betrayed, and broken by their fellow Skaven. They have ultimate power, all 12 of them on the council. Anyone want to take a guess who the 13th seat is reserved for?
Andy, you have to guess this one. You have to.
Come on.
Who's the 13th seat?
No, just tell me. Put me out of my misery.
Come on, it's symbolic.
Sorry, what was the quote? Sorry.
The Council of 13 only has 12 Skaven on it. Who's the 13th seat for? It's a symbolic seat.
Symbolic seat. Should I know this?
It's for the horny god himself.
Oh, for the god. Oh, he can do that? I thought he'd be like an immaterial thing. Where
he's usually off in the realm of chaos in his own little awful corner of it. But it's a symbolic thing. They reserved the 13th seat for him.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why I was like, but I thought he wouldn't manifest as a thing. Yeah, never mind me.
He's like a streamer. He doesn't have legs.
Let's not talk about streamers.
Legs are not confirmed.
I'm gonna bring up VTubers again. I'll do it
again.
Yes, do it.
But although you say that, Andy, unlike many gods in Warhammer, he can be proactive, which again we'll get to.
Oh, I have the better joke. It's like metaverse with Zuckerberg.
He is Mark Zuckerberg.
The legs haven't been made yet at the time of recording.
They're adding them in though. They'll be here in 13 years. The seats occupied by actual Skaven are arranged like a clock. Now it's going to be a weird clock because 13 hands, but they're arranged so that the seats closest to the 13th one, where the Horned Rat is, have the most power on the council, and the ones farthest away have the least. So, again, kind of weird. But imagine 12 and 1, imagine 13 is at the top of the clock, 12 and 1 both have the most power, and 6 and 7 have the least power.
I have a quick question. Is it kind of like meant to mirror... Now, this is a weird. This is gonna be a very out of nowhere reference, but the Last Supper, and how all the apostles are there. Is that like a kind of thing?
I'm sure I've seen an image of the Skaven.
Is
there really?
I don't know. Is that someone else thought of that? I don't know if it's honestly. I don't even know if it's fan art or official, but I'm assuming fan art. I don't think Games Workshop would put out official artwork of the Rat Supper.
Yeah,
please put a picture of that on the video, because that'll blow my mind. If you've seen it and I haven't, that blows my mind.
It's there. I've seen it.
Wow,
really good art.
I'm on the same wavelength as some twisted man.
I don't know if that was intentional, but at least one other person has made that connection now. And as for the other thing about the power, any Skaven can veto the person opposite their seat. So despite being the weakest, 7 can veto 12, 1 can veto 6, vice versa. It keeps it almost in check. They're all constantly scheming and trying to backstab each other, but it kind of almost keeps them in check. As for getting on the council, you can, of course, perform great deeds by whatever standard that Skaven clan is considering a great deed. Oh, there's 2 pieces of artwork for it.
Oh my lord!
To be honest, I've fallen down a bit of a rabbit hole. I've also found one of like the Emperor and the Primarchs and Karl Franz and some guys with weird hats. I found all sorts of Last Supper ones for some reason.
I need that one stat.
There you go. Here it is.
Oh, but before I sidetrack.
Some of us are thinking
those are all the Total War games. Oh god, I'm gonna get. Okay. I gotta scheme on the rats. For becoming on the Council of 13, like I said, you can backstab and get your way up there, or you can touch a Skaven relic known as the Black Pillar and challenge a sitting member. Though this hasn't happened a couple hundreds of years, partially because trying to out-scheme someone on the Skaven Council is a monumental task. And also partly because any rat who touches the Black Pillar has a tendency to explode. So that's kind of a self-solving problem for the council members.
Is it like it explode on like immediately after touch, or is it one of those? And then a few days they died.
No, they touch it and then they explode.
It's like Time Bandits at the end, where it's the parents and they find the chunk of evil in the microwave, and the firefighter's like, "What's this?" And the kid's like, "Mum, Dad, don't touch it, it's evil!" And they just poke it and they blow up. It's amazing.
It's pretty much that, yeah. You touch the evil rock, you blow up.
Nice.
And there are many Grey Seers, all of whom incredibly powerful, but their premier special character, before I finally get on with the history, undoubtedly, Thanquol. God, I love him. He's living proof that you can do nothing but fail constantly and still move up in life. Because that is all he does. He's, on the one hand, to give him credit, he's one of the strongest mages in the setting. He's gone head-to-head with the strongest users of other races. He almost wrestled the dwarven Hindenburg out of the sky. And he regularly snorts warpstone in such amounts that even other Skaven says he should probably back off on that a bit. Turns his already crazy magical skills.
They're getting like the Skaven equivalent of AA meetings from like, dude, you need to slow down.
Like, listen, we're all doing it, but you got to back off.
Tell us how you feel.
Oh, imagine a Skaven intervention meeting. That would be weird.
Yeah, they'd probably just stab you to steal whatever it is.
I was going to say, like, there's going to be a lot of stabbings, but it'd be interesting to watch.
You've not been betraying lately. What's wrong?
Yeah, what's going on? I caught you sending, like, a well-wish to someone. Are you feeling all right?
I'm going to write down your secrets in this book.
Yeah. On the other hand of Thanquol, though, everything he does goes wrong.
It's not his fault. Never his fault.
It's not his fault. No, of course. It's always the fault of underlings or shoddy equipment. Never mind the fact that he usually buys things on the cheap. He saves on the warp token, so it's worth it. He regularly goes to blows with Gotrek and Felix.
Yeah!
He's so impressively incompetent that until, like, in the latter third of the Gotrek and Felix books, they didn't know it was him. They just thought it was a bunch of random encounters with the Skaven.
But he'd been fighting them for like 20 years or something.
Yeah,
and they didn't even realize it was the same rat.
No, when they found that out, he finally captured them, and he starts evil monologuing, and the Gotrek and Felix just look at each other and go, "Who is this?" And he hears that, and to say his ego is a bit bruised.
He almost faints, doesn't it? He like goes woozy.
He starts like tripping over himself.
Oh, he's one of the best characters ever written in Warhammer.
He at one point a Slann captured him, which, just to give you a picture, the Skaven are viewed by the Slann as worse than demons, and the Slann let him go because it foresaw that Thanquol would cause more damage to the Skaven than killing him ever could.
My God, that's literally, for those who would love a bit of history, isn't that the exact thing Salahuddin did to?
Oh yeah.
In the guy in Jerusalem. Oh my God, is it not? It's probably a Robert or something, isn't it?
I know exactly what you're saying.
You know who I'm talking about in history, yeah. And he let him go because he was more damaging to the kingdom of Jerusalem,
yeah,
alive
Well, that just reminds me of the Allies when World War II was happening. They were like, Hitler does such bad decision making. He does more damage to his own army than we ever could. So, like, yeah, don't bump him off. He's doing the damage himself.
Stop the assassination attempts. We let this guy figure it out on his own. Oh. And his crowning achievement, which is just the funniest to me, is when he tried to summon a Vermin Lord, which is a Skaven greater demon. And instead of doing that, the mummified gray seer's paw he used was cursed somehow. It was probably cursed the moment that Thanquol touched it, because he's Thanquol and ruins everything he touches. And instead of a Vermin Lord, he summons Skarbrand.
Oof.
Nice.
Corn. Good old corn.
Yeah. This caused...
Angry boy, right?
This caused all of the dwarf and Skaven forces that were there to just go berserk and just murder each other. Skarbrand, of course, joining in. Queek Headtaker was also there, and he learned pretty quickly Grey Seers aren't the worst thing ever. And Thanquol, for his troubles, just left. Just walked away. He does not pay for his crimes very often.
He always finds a way to blame someone else. It's very funny.
It's
it's
impressive.
If his troops fall back, then it was obviously a rival in Skaven blight sent him bad troops that would run away at the first sign of danger. Stuff like that.
Of course. And now that all the clans and characters out of the way, further history. Most Skaven, it should be said, don't actually know or care about their history. They'd tell you their own personal history happily. But as far as most of them that aren't on the Great Seer Council, who presumably have some records, care about, Skaven history is now, when we don't rule the world, and soon, when we will rule the world. That's pretty much all they care about.
North Korea method.
Are they like perpetually in like BC and AD? Like they're always in BC and they're not in AD yet.
It's before conquest and after devour of service. So, not long after the Doom of Kavsar, the Skaven began to expand, but they realized pretty quick, we don't have a lot of food and space. So, because to give them any credit, they don't do anything by halves. Oh, they cut corners, but they at least try to make it grand when they cut corners. They began building a massive machine powered by warpstone and magic to help just instantly expand the capital of Skaven Blight. It did, to be fair. And it also blew up and destroyed most of Skaven Blight and the Skaven race. And it also just started destroying mountain ranges, because when they screw up big. And if you were wondering why the dwarves hate the Skaven so much, it's because the Skaven decided to put an addition onto their home and blew up the Dwarven Empire by accident, which in turn allowed orcs to just pour into dwarf holds, orcs and goblins, and start the period the dwarfs know as the Time of Woes. Don't tell anyone this, but the Lizardmen also helped because some mountains' feng shui wasn't aligned, so they decided to just move the mountain with their minds. But
he wasn't an Aries, he was a Taurus, so he wasn't feeling right that day.
Yeah, but the dwarfs don't know that, so don't tell him that. But thankfully, there was now a lot more holes in the mountain than there was previously, so the dwarves expanded all across the old world, and one of these expansions took them to the mountain of Cripple Peak. Did not make that name up.
I'm about to say,
I did not make that up. It's named Cripple Peak.
It's a little dicey, that one.
I'm aware.
Just a little.
Hey, blame old 80s Warhammer lore. I didn't write that.
Often.
Oh, man. That's not even the worst of it. By far.
Oh, no.
Ferrus Manus, Corvus Corax.
Arkan Land.
But, Insensitive Peak is where they came into conflict, good lord, conflict with none other than the great necromancer Nagash himself, who, if you don't know much about him, I made a video about him, shameless plug, pardon me. He scares the Chaos Gods. That should tell you all you need to know about him.
I said Ratty Daddy a couple episodes ago. This is Bone Daddy. This is Bone Daddy.
Yeah.
This is Death
Calcium Daddy.
Yeah.
Calcium Daddy. I hate that so much.
Not Marrow Mummy.
Makes it seem healthy.
Bone Daddy.
Oh, Marrow Mummy's funny.
Oh. And once the Skaven entered Nagash's home, well, the home he stole for himself, they began fighting for a century straight. And after 100 years, they both realized that the other side is just not running out of bodies to throw at each other, because Nagash, the Great Necromancer, should tip you off. He just raises the corpses of whatever dies, but there's never not more Skaven to throw at a problem.
So this is fantasy's equivalent of the Octaria sector, where it's like the orcs versus the Tyranids.
Yeah, it's just constant throw more men at it. Imagine World War I, where it's over the trenches, lads, and it's about that level of productive for everyone involved.
Oof.
Eventually, they decide, all right, we're just gonna truce. It's not worth dealing with it. None of them trust each other, of course, but they have better things to do. So they come to a deal. The Skaven will mine Warpstone for Nagash, and in exchange, they'll get to keep a pretty big hunk of it. Eventually, however, Nagash continues his storyline, and his ambitions would lead him to not only destroy his homeland of Nehekara, but attempt to cast a spell that would kill everything on the world at once, all of it, and then raise them as undead under his command. And this is not the only time, because it has happened very, very rarely, but the first time, probably, that the Skaven would ever help another living being of their own volition. They created a blade of purest warpstone known as the Fellblade, gave it to the last living Nehekara known as Alcadizar, who was just a real champ, and told him to have at it, bud. So
my favorite part of that is they make it in Skaven blight, and they had to carry it all the way. For reference, isn't Nehekara is south of Skaven blight in the Warhammer world, and they had the rats when the Skaven had to carry it, and they had to have a huge pack, because the Skaven, like, they'd carry it for like a good 30 minutes, and then it would just drop dead because it was carrying the blade, and the blade would kill it, and then the next one would pick it up.
That's awesome. And they can hold Warpstone no problem for the most part. Not this thing.
Now that's a chain gang.
That's what it was.
Like the baton pass, but extreme.
A mile-long chain of rats. When one died, the next got to hold it. And they even gave him magical assistance while he was fighting Nagash, because even with the Fellblade, Alcadizar wasn't quite up to it. And so, between the Skaven somehow deciding to help another race and Alcadizar, Nagash was slain at the cost of Alcadizar's life. And 2 Skaven Grey Seers, but they're not important, because they were just there to help Alcadizar. That's his story.
Wasn't he isn't, just for reference as well, if you're new to Warhammer, they helped not even a human, they helped a vampire. I'm pretty sure Alcadizar was turned into a vampire.
He was actually the last living.
Oh, I thought it wasn't. Is he the same one as he escaped Neferata when she tried to make him into a vampire?
That's Vladdy Daddy.
No. This is like I swear, like in the story, like she made him, like Alcadizar, like meant to be like her kind of puppet thing, and he escaped, and he was like the last living son. Because I thought he was a vampire, wasn't he?
She might have tried that. I admit I have to brush up on the my vampire counselor. I will admit, but he was not a vampire.
Future episode, definitely.
Teaser. But no, he was not a vampire. He was the last living Nehekaran, because Nagash needed him as a focal point for the spell.
Okay.
Also, Nagash didn't die because death is at most inconvenient to him, but the Fellblade did make it so that he's poisoned every time he dies and comes back weaker.
Love that. Nagash is just like, death is cringe. Ugh.
Yeah, it doesn't stick with him. But the Skaven, to their credit, after Alcadizar wandered off to die, they chucked Nagash's bones into a big furnace to melt them. So they tried. You can't fault them for not trying on this one.
Give it a solid go.
Exactly. Their next great move was to attack the dwarf hold of Carrick 8 Peaks. And initially, they couldn't get past the dwarves, because dwarves have this metal called Gromril, which is the closest you can get to having power armor in fantasy.
Gromril?
Yep, it is a fancy metal. Gromril.
Like that. It's just like, Gromril, please? Nice.
Unfortunately for the dwarves, the Skaven invented flamethrowers shortly afterwards, as well as what's called poisoned wind globes, which is basically portable mustard gas. So that got through the dwarves. Not all the way, though. The dwarves were still stuck in, which is when the Skaven formed a plan with the Night Goblins. They come in from above, the Skaven coming from below, and that pincer attack was too much for the dwarves to handle, even with all of their stubbornness. And after still several centuries worth of fighting, Carrick 8-Peats finally falls, though, to give, again, the dwarves their credit, fighting never truly ends, as many dwarves would forever attempt to reclaim it, chief among them being the Angren clan who once ruled it. If you're a fan of Belegar Ironhammer from Total Warhammer, that's who he comes from. Of course, that being said, it was just a 3-way mosh pit between Skaven, goblins, and dwarves for the rest of time. Also, it's not really important, but it should be mentioned one of the dwarf holds was conquered by a clan, Morbidus, which is very close to Clan Morbius.
Morbidus.
I was literally thinking the same thing.
Not super important to the storyline, but I couldn't let that one go when I was reading about it.
Important lore that you can't leave the video without knowing about the Morbius reference, clearly.
I could not let that one rest. And to move forward next, around year 17 in the Imperial calendar, shortly after the best god emperor, king, whatever, Sigmar took power and created the best empire, the Empire of Man, the Skaven decided meanwhile that, it's time for a nice 600-year civil war. That's what happened when Clan Pestilence came back to the rest of the Skaven, like I mentioned earlier. To sum it up, Pestilence returned, and everyone just starts killing each other. It's mostly Pestilence versus everyone else, but, there's chaos going on. Perfect time for some backstabbing, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Is Pestilence the most powerful? Because I could never gauge them.
They wax and wane a lot more than any other clan. They become the most powerful for the second Civil War to come up later. Other times, the other clans see they're becoming the most powerful and smack them down. So their status is pretty frequently changing.
And when you say Civil War, that implies that they ended
not.
it.
It's I'm
guessing it's like the war on paper. You know what I mean? Like the war's official. Like, okay, we're at war.
That's a good point. To clarify, a Skaven Civil War means they're not pretending like they're not going to backstab each other. When it's an official Civil War, it's just we ball. So that's the difference between business as usual and Civil War. As this was going on, Clan Eshin assassins, towards the end, stopped their neutrality and pledged allegiance to the Council of 13. And as Pestilence Warlord fell to their assassins, they sucked it up and stopped trying to take over all of Skavendom. They still got a seat on the council, though, and now with all of the Skaven as close to being united as they can ever said to be, they turned their attention for the first time to the surface world proper. And 600 years later, around 600 in the Imperial calendar, they begin burrowing under the Empire of Man until they're under damn near everything. And 500 years later, in 1111 IC, the Skaven created the Black Death. I'm not making that up. It's called the Black Plague. It's the Black Death. The rats just did it on purpose in this world. And they sent it across the Empire of Man, and it killed over half the population, much like our own world.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yay.
So is this kind of where Vermintide games are?
No.
Not yet. Not yet.
About 1,500 years before the Vermintide games.
Okay. Never mind.
It's the same vibe, to be fair, though.
We're a little bit early, yeah. But it's much the same for the people of the Empire in terms of what it would have been like. As winter ended of the year of the Black Plague, they finally thought things could get a bit better. They made it through the season. Spring is coming. Maybe they can begin to rebuild. And then hundreds of thousands of rats poured out from under their feet, and they did not get a chance to rebuild. City after city fell until it was largely only Altdorf, Nuln, and Averheim left standing. There was also Middenheim was also left, but it was pretty much under permanent siege. The Skaven rounded up any humans they could find to be used as either manual labor or food. And Clan Pestilence, as a result of the Black Death, became ascended in power. Like you were saying earlier, Hal, this is when they become more powerful again. There are two things that the Empire had going for it, though. One is that, now this, I admit this is not going to sound like a positive, but do hear me out. The ruling emperor at the time was massively, incredibly incompetent and did nothing to help the situation. But the Skaven decided to assassinate him, probably just for the fun of it, to demoralize anyone left. But he was so unliked that if anything, people were happy he was finally gone.
Is that the same emperor as the one who, when Marienburg left the empire, like that unpopular one, or just a different, like much earlier one?
I think it's a different one because if I remember correctly, Marienburg only succeeded a couple of decades before modern Warhammer fantasy.
Okay.
But his death allowed the man who would become known as Emperor Mandra the Skaven Slayer of Middenheim to gather a crusading army to take the fight to the rats once more. This alone might not have worked, except the Skaven did not check that the plague didn't affect their own ranks just as much as mankind. And the Black Death then swept through the Skaven ranks shortly after it was done ravaging humanity.
Isn't that exactly what happened in history when Scotland, in like the Black Death affected England, and the Scots said this was God punishing them? So then they invaded, and then the Black Death then went to Scotland.
I think you might be right. I'd have to double check that, but
you have to double check in case we're wrong.
It does sound familiar.
If it's wrong, it's a law. It's a historic crime, historic law crime.
Well, the sirens are going off, so
I think we screwed up.
They've heard it.
And between these two things, the Skaven were pushed back underground. There was a last act of petty vengeance. The Skaven assassinated him in his sleep. But still, he not only saved the Empire, but set up sewer watches in every city so the Skaven could never again overrun Sigmar's realm.
Sewer watch. That's a shift you don't want.
Yeah, it's not popular, and even worse for them. It shortly after becomes official policy of the Empire to not acknowledge the Skaven's existence. And as their attacks faded from memory, at most they're regarded as a form of beastmen, and at worst, you can get killed for mentioning them by a witch hunter.
Oh.
So, Sewerjack, not a great job, but it keeps it safer, so thank you, Madrid, for that one. They also tried this again in Bretonnia a couple years later. They named it the Red Pox this time, but it's the same thing this time around as well. Very tragically, before it could spread to the rest of Bretonnia, the Baron in charge of the city they unleashed it in just burned down the entire lower class section of the city, so it couldn't spread.
Was this Muspelheim?
I believe.
I can't remember which Bretonian. I mean, you were probably very happy. You'd be very happy with any Bretonian city burning down.
whichever one is gone is happy for me. I think it was Bastogne, but it might have been Paravone as well.
You really do hate Bretonians so much.
I hate everything that has to do with them. They tried it again a few decades later, and this time it almost worked. It actually worked a little bit better than it did in the Empire. But then the Wood Elves came to bail them out, which, again, tragic. I need to move on.
Because they survived.
Yes, because Bretonnia wasn't eliminated. They survived, so thank you, Wood Elves. You screwed up on that one.
Damn.
After that, round 2 of Civil War. This one 400 years long. Clan Pestilence again decided to start shit, having already gained 3 seats on the council, and this time, because of that massive power boost they had, the entire Skaven governing body was essentially defunct, because they had enough seats to veto the other members, and enough power behind them due to the Black Death giving them so much influence, that they could tear apart Skavendom all on their own without the element of surprise this time. This one was even messier, because Warlock Engineer Lord Morskadar of Clan Skryre took control of Skaven Blight. And after that, it wasn't even everyone versus Clan Pestilence anymore. It was just, you see a different Skaven clan, start swinging. And it only ended when the Grey Seers came to every single Skaven clan and gave them an ultimatum to appear at the Vermintide Festival, and again, that's not a real thing, or that is a real thing, or be destroyed. And as much as people were happy to stab them in the back if they could, no one wanted to miss this festival, because this was a celebration of the Horned Rat, and you don't want to mess with him. So, either entire clans went, or some of them only sent a single representative, but once everyone was accounted for, all 169 Grey Seers entered the chamber, performed a ritual, and summoned the Great Horned Rat himself onto the material plane. Remember you asked about that earlier, Andy. He gets off his chair every now and then.
That's more than corn. It's just sitting around all day.
Oh, yeah. The first thing he did was just start grabbing handfuls of Skaven and eating them for several minutes straight until he was full. And then he told them that while he found all this infighting to be unbelievably funny, it's time for them to stop. Once more, it's been 400 years, it's time for another crack at the surface world. And while the Skaven numbers had been kept in check by the endless civil war, now that their god told them to cut the crap, they began growing exponentially once more and returned their attention to the surface. Villages were conquered or just straight up kidnapped around Skaven blight and across the world indeed. Now knowing that their god was directly telling them to act, get their act together, they were again almost unified, and soon everyone from dwarves to night goblins to men and elves were under assault. This is where we get to the fun bits of Skaven again. They almost conquered the city of Nuln once again, and indeed they did manage to burn a lot of it to the ground, but Gotrek and Felix were there, so that just didn't work. They almost destroyed a revolutionary dwarf airship known as the Spirit of Grungni, once again led by Thanquol, but Gotrek and Felix were there, so that also didn't work. They built a submarine. Don't know how, they did. And almost stole a magical high elven harp from a sunken elven city that, if played, would allow the dark elves to drown not only the realms of man, but also Ulthuan, because that's the most elven thing the writer could think of. And, again, Thanquol was leading this operation to get the fancy elven harp. Anyone want to take a guess why this one didn't succeed? Who could have been there to stop it?
God damn. I love Gotrek Felix.
Congratulations, Hal. You win this quiz.
I love that, because I've read Elf Slayer, as in that's actually ironically was my first Gotrek and Felix book, and that just the way it just always seems like, huh? And it's just like they accidentally win every time. And Thanquol is just like pulling his hair out because if he has any hair, because he just can't get a win. That guy, it's so sad. Almost at the end as well.
It's sad, but it's so funny. He just keeps running into the two people that have nothing but the ability to put his schemes in the ground.
He deserves it.
He deserves it, but poor Thanquol. One day he'll get his time in the sun. Until the end times, though, this was the state of affairs. They would try and do something, and while they would get some success, at the end of the day they would be held back. More often than not by Gotrek and Felix. Then, someone who really liked the Skaven started writing their lore. There's, of course, Warhammer Vermintide games, where the Skaven surround and destroy the cities of Ubersreich. Despite the best efforts of the Ubersreich 5 or 4, doesn't matter. And that's kind of what's repeated across the entire Warhammer world. To make it quick, I'm just going to breeze through all of the countries they destroyed. They conquered Talia, they conquered Estalia, they completely wiped out the Lizardmen who were prepared for demons but not rats. They helped destroy Cathay, they were involved in overrunning the Empire, and they blew up Morsliab, the Chaos Moon, with a big cannon they built.
I was going to say, don't forget, rest in peace, my boy, the moon.
Of course, yeah.
The moon of Warpstone.
Yeah. The moon?
Yeah, the moon.
Like Zelda?
No, they literally blew up. Well, no, they didn't blow up the moon. Excuse me. They threw the moon, didn't they, at their planet?
No, I got ahead of myself, pardon me. They pulled it towards the moon, or pulled it towards the planet, just like Zelda, and then Clan Scryer realized they were being shown up, so they blew it up.
When you are the moon.
And then like moon chunks started like landing everywhere, didn't it?
They did. The only reason that the end times didn't end there was because the Slans sacrificed themselves to blow up the moon rocks, slamming into the planet.
Oof.
Because when you're going for gold, you might as well go all out and blow up the moon. And Queek Headtaker gets his time in the sun, and finally fully takes over Carrick 8 Peaks from the dwarves and night goblins, killing Belagar Ironhammer of Clan Engrand, before High King Thorgrim Grudgebearer kills him in... As much as I hate the End Crimes, this is a really cool segment. He lists...
The End Crimes.
The End Crime, yeah.
That should be the new... That's actually a perfect title.
That was accidental, but that was a very good flub. But as much as I hate them, this is a really cool bit of lore where he just lists every single wrong in the Great Book of Grudges that Queek has done before ending it with the murder of Belagar Ironhammer and then killing Queek. So, shame for Queek, but by God, is that cool. What's not cool is what comes next, because you remember how I said Deathmaster Snikch killed Thorgrim? Thorgrim, once he realized it was time to retreat from this battle, forgot to close a doorway behind him, and Snikch got him that way and stabbed him in the back.
Oof.
It's also worth mentioning, Thorgrim has runes on his armor specifically to prevent this, but fantasy needed to end, so they just didn't have him anymore.
Didn't they forget about Skarsnik too? Was we're at it.
They did. Yes, they just forgot about Skarsnik.
They just for Andy, that's like a Night Goblin character. He was like quite beloved. A lot of people like him because he's quite
he was really cool.
Crazy.
He was actually the prophet of Mork. It's not just Gazgul of Gork and Mork, like in fantasy or 40k.
He's not as greedy. He's like, I'll have one or the other. It's fine.
The goblins are a lot more important than Grotz, so Mork got his goblin prophet. And then after he was around at Carrick 8 Peaks, the writer just forgot about him. Oh,
and that's why we hate the end. Yeah, that's why we don't like the end times here.
Really, the only things they didn't end up destroying, though, was Nagaroth, the Dark Elven Kingdom, which a Khornate army destroyed after all of the Dark Elves left to go to Ulthuan. And Ulthuan itself, which the Elves did a fine job of blowing that up in their civil war. They also did try to stop Nagash from gaining power and coming back, and even stabbed him with the Fellblade again. But this was after he'd eaten a god, so it didn't really do anything. But at this point, they did, however, blow up his magic pyramid with underground nukes.
Didn't they do that more than once? I swear they did it more than once.
They did it more than once.
I'll be getting to that, because we're jumping universes for that little gem.
And chill. Leave my pyramid alone.
Oh, good lord. And despite all these successes, the Horned Rat somehow decided that, despite the fact that if they could do all this, they could probably face chaos, the Horned Rat decided they couldn't actually face chaos, so he allied with them instead. Despite the fact, again, the Skaven took out well over half the world during all of this. And remember what I said about the Horned Rat finding things funny? And that's what he likes? Mm-hmm. He ate the Council of 13, the mortal Skaven, and then put Thanquol in charge.
Nice. Yes.
Because who else deserves to be in charge? As the Warhammer world comes to an end, the Skaven, in order to survive, teleported Skaven Blight into the warp. Thanquol and the Great Horned Rat work together, because, again, as much as Thanquol's a clown, he's the Horned Rat's silliest clown fighting his funniest battles. He's still a powerful wizard. And Age of Sigmar will be quick, because, unfortunately, they're not up to too much in that. As it begins, the Skaven somehow managed to dig so aggressively and deeply into the warp, which, as a reminder, is infinite in size, that they crashed it halfway back into reality. Now they can dig tunnels between the Realm of Chaos and reality to appear pretty much wherever they want to, up to and including areas completely blocked off from Chaos, and probably under Khorne's throne if they really wanted to.
That would be hilarious.
Kind of like the Rat Webway, except not OSHA compliant, because sometimes things get lost in it, including demons, and they're just gone forever.
Is it like what's that place in America that no one likes? Like Florida, the one with like all the alligators underneath the cities.
That would
kind of like that.
Probably be Florida.
That's what is it? Is that what it's like? Just like the alligators are everywhere.
I like to imagine it's like Wyoming.
Just like imagining a lost and property full of demons. It's a bit of a weird.
You had to explain the Wyoming part to us, because I think all the rest of us lot are not from the States.
Because Wyoming doesn't exist. Much like the realm between spaces the demons get lost in.
Fair enough.
Oh, shout out to anyone from Wyoming.
Yeah, anyone from Wyoming, please just type in "I'm from Wyoming" in the chat. For no reason, just we need to know.
Aside from that, though, it's largely business as usual for the Skaven, trying to take those in the surface world for themselves, gain ultimate power. The only difference is there's even more of them now, as the clans of the Skaven are now types of clans with millions each. So instead of it being, Clan Pestilence has millions of rats in it, there's thousands of types of Clan Pestilence, each with millions of rats. There's just exponentially more Skaven. That's the Age of Sigmar lore. You like Skaven? There's more of them. They tried to invade before the rest of Chaos showed up and got destroyed, so they waited till the other 4 Chaos Gods showed up. 3, actually. Slaanesh was put in jail. They're very sorry, Eli. Their most noteworthy accomplishment was when Nagash once again tried to gain power with magical pyramids. The Skaven blew it up again.
I'm sensing a theme here. I'm slightly sensing a theme.
Much like the Tyranids exist to eat whatever needs to be eaten in 40k to keep the plot from moving forward, the Skaven exists to keep Nagash from moving the plot moving forward.
I kind of imagine it like the Skaven just walking past, and they're like just looking at his building, like, oh, it's like a nice square. But what shape is that building? It's a pyramid. It cannot stand.
To give Nagash credit, these pyramids were upside down and floating this time.
Yeah.
Pyramid upside down is still a pyramid.
He thought that would keep them from digging under them and blowing that up, which it didn't. They still managed it. They also, a different group of Skaven on their way to screw with Nagash, dug into the bottom of an ocean in Nagash's realm and drowned half of Skaven blight. And then when the water... yeah, I know. And then when the water was done pouring in, it's an ocean in the realm of the dead, so zombies started pouring into Skaven blight.
That's awesome. Amazing. That's really cool.
This also revealed the existence of the Idenith Deepkin to Nagash, because he'd been looking for the people that kept stealing souls from him and couldn't find them. So despite the fact that the Skaven ruined their plan, it still helped. Anyone want to take a guess who is in charge of all of this?
Sure hope it's Thanquol.
It was Thanquol. He survived the end of the world.
Woo!
He's now known as the Grey Lord, a very influential seer. Though, again, he still screws up a lot. And before we end, Thanquol, as we know, can never have nice things. Ever.
Never.
Ever. I'm going to try and send something into the general. Did that go through this time?
Yes, I see it.
Hal, a quote for you to lead. What happened with this quote is, Thanquol, after all this time, was pretty secure in his power base. He would screw up sometimes and he'd have to cover his tracks, but not that much because he's top dog of Skavendom now, aside from the Horned Rat, of course. And then, someone else made it through the end of the world. Though he doesn't have Felix on his side anymore, Gotrek, despite wanting nothing more than to die, survived the end of the Warhammer world.
Yeah!
They say the guardsman, the planet broke before the guard did. The planet broke and Gotrek just didn't.
Yeah.
He just kept going.
They did Felix so dirty, though.
Oh, I know. And so, Hal, would you like to read a quote of what Thanquol said the moment he realized
it has to be a Skaven impression, because we've all done one.
Come on.
Okay. I actually cannot voice that, so this will be rough.
It's quite all right.
He lives! No. It cannot be! Not him. Not again. Not like this. Oh, always the same. I want him dead. Ah!
That's what I've got.
That was pretty good. It wasn't too bad, man. That was pretty good.
Oh, man. I take a bow from that. Nogasi.
Thanquol.
Enjoy that edit of that.
Very much. This time, Gotrek sees him as a proper enemy and is going to attempt to kill Thanquol as revenge for Felix's father, who Thanquol had actually killed in the old world. But with that, that is largely the end of the Skaven episode. Anyone have any questions?
I have emotions after that. Man, oh Lord, that was I wish if someone is like just a 40k fan and they're wondering like what the kind of vibe of it is definitely, it's obviously comic relief, right? Like the equivalent in a fantasy. But obviously we have orcs, but Skaven are like a new level of comic relief.
They're so well done with it too, because they can be played as clowns or as incredibly serious. Because on the one hand, you have anything Thanquol does, which is just fun to read about. I didn't mention this earlier, but Thanquol gave us the wonderful quote of, "There's more than one ways to skin an infant." So that's something to look forward to in Godric and Felix.
Yo, that's a bit too much there. That's a bit
To be honest,
goated.
I feel like what you were saying, it's like it depends what perspective you're standing from with the Skaven. Like if you're a Skaven, if you're in Skaven society, it's kind of funny. But like the poor Empire citizen whose family have got like this pox or whatever, and their family have been eaten by rats, like not very fun for them. But you know.
Yeah,
does my boy?
Children.
I have a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I would say on the one hand, it's a race of funny Dr. Doofenshmirtz rats. On the other hand, it's an endless tide of hateful vermin that want nothing more than you to die.
Yikes!
Epic.
I was gonna ask if our main man, our Randy Orton slithering out, Carl Franz, has he ever fought Skaven?
He has.
In the lore?
Off the top of my head, Skaven are not one of the enemies he's most he fights the most. His chief enemies would be the Greenskins, orcs and goblins, as it is any proper emperor of the Empire of Man, and Chaos, who he's pretty good at dealing with, except for the fact the planet blew up, but don't worry about that. He has, of course, fought the Skaven, but they're not given nearly as much prominence.
I guess one last bit is Eli. I'll ask Eli first. Eli, what's your favorite clan out of all of them?
I think my favorite clan is probably Scryer. I like Clan Moors a lot as well, just because Queek is such a Chad. But
he's a little bit more. I'll say relatable there. I don't know why that word came into my head because that's not right at all.
He's almost a good person by Skaven. By Skaven standards, he's a saint.
I mean, everyone loves Icky Claw. Everyone loves Icky Claw and Scryer.
What are you, Colin? What's your favorite?
Mine probably is Clan Moors, because the Skaven monsters are so uncomfortable to look at, but in a good way.
Is that Mulder or Moors? Is Moors
Mulder? Pardon me. Did I say Moors?
Yeah,
I've been flubbing so much this episode. My apologies.
It's all good. Lorecrimes.
Yeah.
That's pretty.
Because Clan Mulder, just the rat ogres, the storm fiends, which are rat ogres with machine guns bolted to them or flamethrowers.
So awesome.
They're just crazy.
I wish they had something of, because obviously we've had in 40k the return of the oh my god, they're not squats. What are they called? Leagues of Votann.
The not squat. The squats.
They're not squats.
They're the squats.
And I mean, it'd be really cool if they had to fight. You know, what I mean, if we had like they're essentially in the setting again. So we have dwarves. I guess all we're missing now is Skaven.
Rats.
Yeah, they'd be
the rat
awesome.
boys.
I don't think Bile accidentally creates the Skaven. It's like, what?
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
I don't think it would take much for them to fit in either, because their weapons are already all powered by chaos.
Yeah, they just need some higher tech, a little bit higher tech stuff, and they'd be there.
Yeah. And they've got.
They tie in a bit with the Nurgle stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
He is actually one of the only other army you can ally with on tabletop. Nurgle demons.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So yeah, only if you're Clan Pestilence though. You have to be the sick rats.
I think they're my favorite just because they have, like, their aesthetic is so strong. Like, they're really. I like Does anyone here, like, obviously we all like dabble in Warhammer, but I love the painting side of it and painting things like Death Guard, and I mean just making them look like someone threw up on your model in an artistic way.
Of course.
Is now I'm a big fan of them. I think they're just so, when like it's like with Erebus, you'd love to hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I love to hate Clan Pestilence though. No, that's really cool, man. Really cool.
Yeah, they're probably I love and hate them. I love them because they're, like you said, so cool visually. Vermintide makes me hate them because I turn around and they've taken half of my health.
The Plague Monks, right? The Plague Monks.
Yeah, because the Berserker enemies like that are so tough in that game that if you don't have your ultimate, you're just down.
Yeah.
No, I guess I hope everyone listening, if you were new to Warhammer or just a 40k fan and you're new to fantasy, I hope you enjoyed our little foray into the Skaven. Hopefully we didn't scar you for life. Or hopefully just developed Total War Warhammer is a really good way to learn more about it, or basically play with it. Hopefully Total War 40k comes about one day.
That's how I got into this whole setting, Total Warhammer.
Yeah.
Anything Warhammer related. That started the addiction.
And now we're all here, unfortunately, for all of us. What wrong decisions we've made. Thank you all for listening. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. Does anyone else have anything to say? And what's our next episode on, boys? If I'm remembering correctly.
Unless I'm looking at it wrong, Hal. I believe I am looking at it wrong. The next episode. You're still on it. I could save this. The next one.
I think it's corn, isn't it?
Indeed.
We're on
Yeah.
corn.
So if anyone wants to listen and sit and
I will say that between the next beginner to expert podcast episode and this one, we also have something a bit special planned with fantasy in particular. So
yeah,
quite interesting.
Look forward
So if
to
you
that
enjoyed this episode, that
Special project we're cooking up. Oh, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Also, Merry Christmas, everybody. The time of the
be
recording, this will be out before Christmas time.
Should
So
be
Merry Christmas.
Christmas Eve.
Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.
Take care,
Peace.
everyone.
Farewell.
Bye, everyone.
Skaven best.
Yes.